here today with Andris Piebalgs to discuss a very interesting paper published this year called Decarbonizing the Gas Sector, Is Renewable Gas a Serious Option? So Andris, we read in nowadays statistics that renewable gas is becoming more and more important, also in the views of the Commission in terms of energy policy. But looking at data, we see that at the moment the amount of renewable gas compared to the rest of the gas, the so-called conventional gas, is only about 4%. So why all this talking about renewable gas?
Yeah, well, I think it's very much related to two events that is coming in front of us. One is Commission unveiling long-term strategy for diminishing of greenhouse gas emissions, and another is Katowice event that is related to Paris Agreement. I think all this renewable gas comes in as a strategy how to decarbonize energy sector in general. And the challenge is that, well, you have at least one model. One model is electricity model that at some stage parts of the world goes to electricity only world. So you have wind, you have solar, and you have batteries at that time, and you live happily without carbon emissions. So that is one vision that exists. But there are serious challenges if you regard this. One is that definitely you need to build a lot of infrastructure. Second, batteries are still quite expensive and the scale is not there. And electrification definitely leaves a lot of assets that you have, particularly in Europe. And then you say, well, are there any other ways? And so any other way is, well, mostly focused on gas, because gas is the cleanest already from the fossil fuels, so you could easily understand that if there is less coal and more gas, you can deal with this. Gas could deal with intermittencies of also wind and solar, and you have also, well, opportunities with gas to support your energy system if there is no wind, no sun, and still very cold. So you have more options in this respect. So, and then you say, well, until the 70% of decarbonization, you can go just with gas systems that you have. But what happens if you go beyond that? And then this issue with renewable gas comes into the game. So I believe that's why so little happens on practical grounds, that there is still not political choice being made, at least in Europe, and globally even less. So that, I think, explains that there have been less investments, because people don't know, should we invest more, or perhaps the political decision for decarbonizations will be done differently.
It's a good alternative, or at least a good integration tool for in comparison with an all-electric system only. Let's say that gas and renewable gas will take a bigger and bigger role in this picture.
You can follow, I think, well, usually Commissioner Cañete is the person to focus at least at this stage. What he says is for 2030, well, I would say not very surprising. He says we will have 32% at least renewables, and in electricity 55% will be of renewables. So far so good. But when he comes to 2050, he says, well, I expect that in overall final energy consumption we will grow from 27% of electricity to 50%. So 50% is not anymore electricity.
No, exactly.
And in this electricity, he expects roughly 80% will be renewables. So he doesn't even expect that in electricity you're 100% renewables. And then you say, what is this 50%? And even 10% of electricity. And then you consider all the options. Gas seems the simplest option from all of them, not only as some type support to renewables, but also being used more in transport, directly or through electricity, being used more also in support of the heating, cooling. So you have completely different approach of it. But he doesn't spell out it is the gas or something else. And I think in the debate after Commission will come with a strategy will be the answer to it, because you need really to make this political choice. If you don't make, then you lose a lot of time. And as I mentioned, the real challenge doesn't start until 2030. The real challenge is starting from 2030 going to 2050. So you still have a time, but you need at least clear decisions, for example, power to gas technologies. You need to start to invest, you need to get a learning curve, and you need to scale up.
Exactly, and here it would be my second question to you. So, differently from the electricity sector, probably the integration of renewable gas or renewable sources in the gas sector will mean something more than just adding more renewable energy to the system. Which are the biggest challenges in your view?
Well, I think for the renewable gas, you can always argue that natural gas is perhaps also an option, because you can do carbon capture and storage. You can also make separation of carbon from natural gas in it. But it very much depends on the CO2 price. So I think it's starting to work. That is an option. But for renewables, the biggest challenge, in my opinion, it's still this power to gas. What are the costs? Are they competitive or not? Because if it is competitive as a technology on big scale, I mean, well, then we have solved the problem. Yeah.
Yes.
If we have not, we will have a real challenge. Perhaps it can't be done on such a big scale, because there is a lot of also considerations that, for example, countries like Saudi Arabia or Algeria, where you have more sun, you can also produce renewable electricity, and you could produce also renewable gas. The questions that people ask in this case, well, how you do with the competition with natural gas? It would be rather difficult. And they say, well, by far more simple that you bring electricity cable from Algeria to Europe, and then you produce renewable gas on European soil, because then you are knowing better how to use it. Because expectations that there will be big renewable gas market, global market, it's at least at this stage non-existent. So it is European issue, and Europe needs really to accept it or to look for other solutions.
And possibly work as a model for the others, who knows?
Yeah, there is another definitely opportunity that at least in Europe could scale substantially and improve this level of climate friendliness for gas. It is biomethane, because we have different biogas support schemes, but they are very local. There is no global approach on it. Then there is also, well, feedstock issues that could be improved, and we could live better in this and using more feedstock really to produce renewable gas. Whatever we do, we have basically two approaches. One approach, I think, with renewable gas is really to go in deep decarbonization with renewable gas. That is one political choice. Another political choice saying, well, we can make partially gas more climate friendly, but still it will have quite a lot of fossil fuel in it. And I think it is not so much economical choice, it's more political choice, because second option, I mean, partial decarbonization will anyhow happen. But to go for the system where gas, decarbonized gas or renewable gas is a serious part.
Choice.
It's by far more stronger choice.
Of course.
And this is something that is not easy to make, but I hope after Commission will come with long-term strategy and the debates, it will be taken, because I personally don't see other options. Because the real challenge is that we have had limited decarbonization in transport and in the building sector. And here we need to respond to these challenges. And with all the support that I have for renewable electricity, we still see that there are challenges with intermittency and also with particular events that could happen for some time. And people will not accept to freeze just because there is no sun outside. So you can deal with the issues using the gas. And I believe that, I think, is a solution for Europe. I'm not saying that other parts of the world should follow it, but the reason is Europe has good gas network, gas density is by far more higher energy densities than electricity density, and it would be cheaper for Europe as well to do this shift.
Sure. On this and on the difficulty of making strong political choices, do you think that harmonizing the guarantees of origins might help in building a more and more renewable gas sector?
Yeah, definitely, because that's part of the trading mechanisms. That I think is one step, and the second is perhaps at this stage sounds a bit of challenging. It is definitely harmonization of gas quality requirements. I know that there will be a lot of discussion, do we need it, but if the political choice is being made, it's unavoidable to go this. How much hydrogen you can put in existing system. Some people say 10% is quite easy doing, some say more, some say less. And there is in current legislation how to solve the dispute, but it takes enormous time. So if we take these decisions, and we need really to reflect on it. Then there is another issue. If we go this decarbonization strategy, we change this pattern, how seasonality will be less an issue, but there will be more response to flexibility of the system. So the gas should respond differently to it. So there is a lot of new challenges also for gas sector that it could be dealing with rather well, but it's not the same situation as it now. Seasonality, day peaks, etc. So it is different type of situation in the European gas sector, but I believe that it is doable, and I personally would favor this renewable gas choice, because at least I can clearly see how it works out. About other decarbonization strategies, you put too much on unknown, and that's true that there could be some breakthroughs, but it's difficult to expect in such a short time span that these breakthroughs will be to the scale that by 2050 would be basically having carbon neutral energy system. And it's, I think somehow the time factor does not allow to say, well, we could avoid making choices. And I would say, no, I think time factor is so crucial that we need to make a choice, and perhaps it will cost more, but at least we know what the choices are. But I still believe what we also wrote in the paper, that there is good reason to work on this strategy, and particularly power to gas is definitely very strong argument in favor of this approach.
Okay, very good. So thank you very much. So we can maybe conclude by saying that to decarbonize the gas sector, renewable gas is indeed a serious option. But we need to take action and make even sometimes strong political choices pretty soon. Thank you very much, Andris.
Thank you.